then make sure you make the juices. Don't worry, I haven't gone anywhere. Right behind you, because it'll make it all squodgy and not very nice. Hello, Garrett from D-Toxd, and what I wanted to do today is to just run you through some simple tips for you to use when you're juicing. Some of you may have juiced or made smoothies before, and others of you may not have done it before. So I just wanted to make this intro video to explain a few simple things that will help you. Now we've got two machines that we can use to make juices or smoothies. The first one that I'm going to go through here is a juicer. Now the one that we have is what is called a centrifugal juicer. So the blade spins really fast, throws the fiber into the back and brings the juice out into the middle. You have your top here, and then this is your plunger that pushes the things down, and then inside here you have your funnel where the juice comes out, and you have the blade. Now it's important that whenever you finish your juicing, you wash your blade straight away, because if you don't wash your blade, some of the fructose and fiber can get stuck in the blade, and then it can become clogged. So if you wash it straight away, then it stays, you can see here, it's a really fine mesh. It stays clean and it helps you to get more juice out of your vegetables. We've had this one now for maybe 2 or 3 years. We always wash it straight away, so it's in pretty good condition. Then at the back here, you've got your bin. Now if cleaning is a concern to you, because a lot of people worry about the time that it takes to juice and the cleaning up afterwards, what you can do is you can get a plastic bag, put it inside your dustbin or whatever you want to call it, and then all the fiber goes in there, and you simply pull the bag out and tie it up and throw it away. One of the things that we use the pulp for is we give it to, Miriam and Jerome have some chickens, so we give it to the chickens so that they can enjoy it. So you simply put it together. You see the plastic bag doesn't affect anything. Put this back on. And then this is the funnel where everything goes into. You have your jug that you put here to go underneath to catch the juice. One thing that I like to do when I juice is I just get a little bit of kitchen towel and I wrap it up or fold it up, and I put it underneath my juicer like that, and then I put my jug in, and then what happens is if anything leaks or flows out, I don't have it all over my countertop. Now when we use the juicer, we use it mostly for hard fruits. So things like your apples and your carrots, your celery, your ginger and that sort of stuff, and cucumbers, but I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. If you're going to use something like fresh spinach, what I suggest that you do, or what we suggest that you do, is you put an apple or a hard fruit in, then you get your spinach and you scrunch it up into a ball and you put it in there and compact it down, and then you put another hard fruit on top of it. What that does is it helps you to get more juice out of your spinach. Now, you don't only have to add spinach to your juices when it comes to leafy ingredients. You can also juice things like kale, you can juice lettuce, you can juice rockets, you can juice cress, whatever it is, the same process would apply. I would scrunch them up into balls, put them between 2 hard fruits and zoot them through the juicer. Things like carrots, you don't need to peel, just give them a rinse because there is nothing wrong with the carrot skin. And things like celery as well, these just go straight through the juicer. You can break them off, and then when you've got to the end of your batch of celery, you can juice the end bit. But what I find when I juice this, part at the end is that it gives it a really strong flavor. The same with the leaves. You can juice the celery leaves when you get celery that's got all the long leaves on it, but that will give it a little bit more of a peppery taste. So I like to buy the celery like this with the ends cut off. It's still got a bit of the leaves on it, but that's not too bad. It doesn't alter the flavor too much. So when it comes to using things like broccoli, we like to keep the stems. So I would cut my florets off and use those for cooking. But then what I do is I put them in a bag in my fridge, and I use a piece of the stalk when I want to make my juices, and then I just put a chunk of that through the juicer. Some people use other ingredients for their juices, such as sweet potatoes or asparagus or parsnips and things like these. Now, I don't have a problem with them, but I don't personally use them because I don't like the flavor of them. With things like your sweet potato or your parsnips, I would peel them first because the skin on those kind of things can be a little bit bitter and earthy. So make sure if you are going to try a juice using sweet potato or parsnips or asparagus, then make sure you peel them. None of our recipes are going to include those ingredients because selfishly I don't like using those ingredients, so I haven't come up with any recipes for those ingredients. So that's the juicer that a lot of people use. I'm not going to do the actual juicing in front of you. I'll show you some prep in a little bit because it's going to make a bit of noise. We also have over here, this is kind of like, where's my container? This is a NutriBullet, so it's kind of like a mini blender. It has a cup or a flask sort of thing, and it has a little thing like that with the blade, and you put the blade on, you stick it in, you press the button, and it zhuzhes everything up. So now what we do when we use something like a NutriBullet or a blender, if we want to add some avocado or some frozen fruit into our juices, we would make the juice first in the juicer. We would then pour it in here and add in your avocado or your frozen fruit, things like mangoes, the softer fruits, so things like mangoes and strawberries, anything that's soft would go in here. Sometimes when we make our juices, we can only get the soft pre-cooked beetroots. So what I like to do when I make a beetroot juice is just chop up a few chunks, put it in there, and then I use that. But if I'm using a uncooked beetroot, what I would do is I would cut the bottom and the top off. So I would remove the little tip at the end, and I would remove the stalk stem at the top. What that does also is it takes away that earthy flavor of the beetroot, because sometimes when we juice it with the tip, the top and the tail still with it, that can give it that earthy taste that a lot of people say, oh, but I don't like putting beetroot in my juices because it tastes earthy. Another tip about using beetroot when you put it through the juicer is if you're going to make a batch of juices, make sure you make the juices with beetroots at the end. So keep them up until the end, because if you don't, it's going to make all your juices pink. So when you're juicing your beetroots through the juicer, cut the top and the tail off and use those at the end. So make sure that they're the last juices that you make. Now, one important tip, you will have seen some of our recipes and it will say, well, use 1 apple and 1 cucumber and 3 sticks of celery. If you're putting it in the juicer, that's fine, because what it does is it strips the fiber, it separates the fiber, and it takes the juice out, so you don't get the fiber. But if you're making something like a smoothie or using a Vitamix to make your juices, using some of the recipes that we have, what I would suggest that you do is, I want you to imagine that when we use this to make a juice or a smoothie, what we're getting is the whole fruit. So we're getting the juices from the fruit as well as the fiber. If you were to put in the whole apple and the whole carrot and things like that, it would be a bit much for your body to take in. It would make you full really quickly. So a rule of thumb that I always like to use is chop up your fruits or your vegetables and put them in a bowl, and imagine that you were going to sit down and eat that bowl in one sitting. Never put more in your NutriBullet or blender than you would eat at one sitting. And you want to kind of like chop it up a little bit smaller so that it blends down really well. If you're using things like lemons and oranges, maybe just use a juice squeezer to squeeze the juice out and then pour it in. If you're going to put some ginger into your smoothie using the NutriBullet, just peel it and then maybe just chop it up pretty fine, because ginger can be quite hairy. I want to go back to the juicer. When we say in our recipes use a little bit of ginger, we usually use a piece about the size of a thumb, or roughly the size of a golf ball. If you wanted to have more kick and more punch, then simply use more ginger. One thing that you also want to do when you make it in the NutriBullet or the blender is you want to use a liquid of some form. Depending on the ingredients that we use, sometimes I like to use orange juice. Orange juice goes nice with things like mango and strawberries and carrots and lemon and that sort of stuff. So I would put a little bit of liquid in there so that it helps everything to blend together. You can also use a milk of some sort, soya milk, rice milk, oat milk, coconut milk, whatever you want to do. Coconut water is another good one that you can use. You can use plain water, but sometimes these liquids will add a little bit of flavor to it. This is where you would also put your bananas, if you're going to add bananas or have a recipe with bananas. Things like peanut butter would go in here. This is where you would also put in your superfoods. So this is my cacao powder, because I like my cacao powder, and this is a protein powder that I use. But things like bee pollen, flaxseed, chia seed, it's good to put them in there. You can also mix them in by hand, but I just find that when you put them in the NutriBullet, it breaks them up a little bit more. So those are the two machines that we use mostly for our juices. What I want to show you quickly is how we prepare some of the fruits. Now this is just a personal choice. I've been making juices and drinking juices and smoothies for almost 10 years now, and I've found things that really enhance the flavor of juices and make them a lot more palatable. So when you're using things like oranges and lemons and limes, I like to peel my lemons, and the way that I do that is I just top the ends off and I just take the yellow off. I just find that it improves the flavor. Sometimes when you juice the lemon with the skin, it can make the juice a little bit bitter. And one thing to think of, another way to think about lemons is imagine that it's a little bit like salt. When we add salt to food, it enhances the flavor of ingredients. But if we add too much, it turns the meal to shit and it tastes salty, and it's very difficult to remove that taste. It's the same with lemon. Lemon is going to enhance the flavor of the other ingredients that you put in your juice. So depending on how flavorful you want it would depend on how much lemon you use. We generally use half a lemon per juice, and you can see here that when I've peeled it, I still have a lot of the pith on it. Now the pith has got some good nutrients in there and it helps our digestive system. So I don't want to take all the pith off, I want to keep the pith there. And I do the same with oranges. Orange skin and lime skin is not good to put through the juicer because it contains oils that the body finds difficult to break down. So it can make you feel a little bit ill. We can cook with orange zest and we can cook with lime zest. That's because it removes the oils from the zest. But the same sort of thing, I peel it and I leave as much pith on, and then that goes into my juicer. There are also things like melons. Now, what I normally do with the melon, and again, this is just personal opinion is I like to peel it, but I don't peel it too much. So I get my vegetable peeler. Let me just cut this. So this one I'm using a white melon because I don't have any watermelon at the moment. I just take my seeds out because that can clog your juicer up a little bit. And then I just peel it gently. So I'm just taking off the green part of the melon because I find that this green part or the skin of the watermelon or whatever it is makes it a little bit bitter. So I've still got my white melon, and then I cut that up into chunks and I put it through the juicer. You can also chop it up and put it into your blender when you're making, after you've made your juice. Another fruit that I always peel is pineapple. I like to take the skin off because I just find that the skin of pineapple does not juice really well. If your pineapple is kind of like overripe, the best thing to do would be to peel it, cut it into chunks and put it in the freezer because it's a little bit soft when it goes through your juicer. So then when you want to make your juice that's got pineapple in, juice your hard ingredients, add the pineapple. So I always like to peel the pineapple and just take as much of the green skin off. Don't take too much of the pineapple away. There's another one that some people use in their juices and smoothies, and that's kiwi fruit. Now we know that kiwi fruit has that like hairy skin. Again, peel them to take the skin off, and then when I use kiwi fruit, I would put it in my NutriBullet or my Vitamix. Avocados, same sort of thing. This goes into your blender. You cannot put this through the juicer because it'll make it all squodgy and not very nice. So take the pip out, scoop the avocado out and put it into the blender. Another thing that I personally also like to do, if I'm using things like cucumber, I will also peel them. I'll just give them one peel, just to take the green off. Again, this is a personal choice. I just find that when I make juices with the skin on, they have a slightly bitter taste. When I peel them and take the skin off, then the juices generally taste better. So I would peel it and put that through the juicer. One really useful tip when you are making a batch of juices is to get all your ingredients prepped before. I like to use different containers, so I know that when I put my ingredients in this container, it's for a batch of a certain juice. When I put my ingredients in another container, that's for another batch of juices. Rather than say, okay, I'm gonna make the green giant now, so I'll prepare the ingredients for the green giant. And then I'm gonna make the beet blast next, so I can prepare all the ingredients for that. I like to get all the dirty work out of the way because then it makes my juicing process or my smoothie making process a lot easier and a lot quicker. So get all your ingredients batched up and prepared up in advance. If you're going to use the NutriBullet and the blender to make your juices or smoothies, rather than making them all in advance, a good idea to do is spend a little bit of time prepping up your ingredients. So kind of like chopping up your cucumber, that sort of stuff, putting up your ginger, getting everything ready, and then put them in freezer bags, Ziploc freezer bags, so you know that that bag is going to be for that smoothie on that day, and then put those in the freezer. Because when you are using your NutriBullet, you really only have this to clean. So rather than making them all in advance, you could just batch up your ingredients in freezer bags, put them in the freezer, then when you want them, all you need to do is take your bag out the freezer, put it in your NutriBullet or your blender, add in a little bit of juice or liquid, put it on, and you've got your smoothie there. Another simple tip that I like to encourage people to do is, instead of making a juice every day, what you can do is make them ahead of time and put them in plastic bottles and store them in the freezer. then you can take them out and enjoy them. It just saves you a lot of time. You can spend an hour making a whole batch of juices, keep some out, put some in the freezer, then whenever you want, you can just take them out. You can also freeze them when they have got your avocado and your berries and that sort of stuff in. So it's just a great way to save on time and get your stuff done ahead of time. Now, when you put them in the freezer, you don't want to fill the bottle all the way up, because what happens is then the ice expands and it can leak out the bottle. So when I put them in, I always will fill them up to about there, so I leave a little gap at the top. I do let them stand for a little bit so that I can see if there's any foam at the top that I need to take off, which will also take up a bit of space. Give it a good shake, put my lid on, make sure that it's airtight, and then put straight in the freezer. So that's another handy tip. If you're doing one of our 3-day online retreats, or you want to do a juice program at home, make all your juices in advance. Get it out of the way, and then it's done, and you've got your juices to enjoy when you feel free. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask us. Post them up in the online retreat group, or if you're not taking part in one of the online retreats, post the questions in the comments below, or simply send us an email. But I'm going to go now, get my juices done for the next few days, and I shall see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.